All right, welcome back to Unscripted, the Field of 68's Michigan State basketball podcast. I'm your host, Greg Waddell. My co-host, Carter Elliott, is here, and our returning guest. I think you are the only reoccurring guest of this season, so I hope you feel special with that honor. It's David Klein from Spartan Hoops. DK, what's going on, man?
Not much, fellas. I appreciate you having me on. I do feel special, actually, so thank you.
As well you should, DK. And I know on the last episode I said the victory shades were dead. I know I said I broke them. I lied to the people out there, because after this past Saturday, you can call it a shtick, you can call it whatever you want, but the victory shades have returned because the Spartan Dogs were victorious this past weekend. The Spartan Dogs made changes. We had adjustments by the coaching staff. You heard that correctly. We had #adjustments. And we won a basketball game, and we chirped while doing it. It was a beautiful sight. I'm glad that we are able to have both these gentlemen here on a happier note, because I don't like our therapy sessions. They're not fun for me. I like getting my feelings out there, but I never feel good talking about the downfall of Michigan State. But it was greatly exaggerated. I don't want to say we're back, but we might be back. All right. I'm just saying.
That is the most prideful victory lap I've ever seen after beating a bubble team at home to go 1-3 in the last 3 games. Kudos, Cart. Congratulations. I'm glad. I'm not glad you lied. I never condone lying to the people. I did text you my address after Michigan beat Purdue, requesting that you send me the victory shades, and you did tell me they were broken. So you lied to me and the people. It is what it is.
It would have went to waste with you, because Ohio State did away with you boys.
I would have sent them back. I wouldn't have told you they were broken. Look, it's good to see you happy. There's 4 things. I came in with objectives to this episode because this is a workday morning. We're recording this. Like, I know you guys are working men. I can't keep you here too long. 4 objectives. I want to talk about what Michigan State got right and the adjustments they made in the Indiana game. I want to talk about there was an article that came out with Big Ten coaches, like anonymous breakdowns of teams. And what they said about Michigan State was really interesting. So I want to pick your guys' brains about that. I want to preview the games for this week. We're recording this on a Tuesday. So there's the Penn State game on Tuesday, and then there's a big one at home against Illinois on Saturday. And then I want to do a quick Big Ten round the horn teams. How far do you trust them to go in March? So we'll save that for the end. But first, 76-61 was the score against Indiana. Kind of a back and forth game, if you can call it that. I feel like Michigan State built an 8-point lead like 4 separate times in the game. And then the first 3 times, Indiana just crawled right back into it. And then finally, down the stretch, Michigan State proved too much for the Hoosiers, who I don't think are very good. I think like they very clearly should be an NCAA tournament team, but they're just like slipping into a bubble team at this point. It was a big spot for Michigan State. I forget what they were favored. Was it like MSU -3 or 4?
I think it was 4.
I think it was 4. I stayed away from it just because I felt like you couldn't really tell what Michigan State team was going to show up. But it was a must-win spot at home. Probably looking back on it, should have put some money on the Spartans. Tom Izzo at home in a bounce-back spot. Good thing to bet on, especially when you get the news that A.J. Hoggard has been moved into the starting lineup. That was the big thing that happened over the weekend. So DK, let's start there. Was that the correct move at this point in time?
100%. So in the article leading up to this game said that there needed to be an adjustment. I listened to your guys' podcast with Brandon Wood, and you guys were echoing similar sentiments. I didn't actually listen to it because I was so sad about the state of the program until actually after we had beat that Indiana team. And then I was curious to see what you guys' thoughts were. And we had very similar thoughts on it, that there just had to be some type of adjustment to the starting lineup because of the way that Michigan State was getting off the blocks. And it happened 3 games in a row, 4 games in a row. And it was like, okay, are you going to make an adjustment to either how the rotational minutes are being allocated or to the starting rotation? And then what do we get? We get basically the best case version of both guys in that Indiana game. You saw what Hoggard's capable of doing in terms of setting the table. He got downhill the entire night. He was chippy. He was vocal. We kind of have talked over the course of this season about who the alphas are on this team, or lack thereof, which has been for most of the season. I think you can directly point, in my opinion, to 3 guys that you can very clearly say are dog mentalities, those typical Spartan guys that you can kind of lean on for that mental toughness, for that physicality. And to me, that's AJ Hoggard, Malik Hall, and I think Jaden Akins gives it to you too. Guys that you know the moment they're in the game are going to give you some type of impact immediately hitting the floor. So for me, I thought that was 100% the right decision. I felt way better heading into that game, seeing the staff willing to make an adjustment, because I think the one thing that we've talked about pretty consistently is this staff has been pretty slow to make adjustments the last couple of years. Last season, it almost cost them a tournament bid because of how slow they were to start playing their best players. At least now we hit a lull. We looked for the staff to make the adjustment, and they were able to do so. AJ Hoggard ends up with 14, 4, and 8. He gets kicked out of the game for clapping, which was absurd. I mean, he was just sitting there clapping. I don't think he even said anything, and they give him the double T. It was chirpy all game. I thought the refs did a bad job of controlling that, but I love to see it. I just love that it was like from the moment, it felt like the energy was right. And then Tyson Walker comes off and takes 6 threes. Like, thank you. And he hit half of them. Like, he just looked like the guy that we saw from Northeastern, taking him off the dribble when he got a switch onto a big, picking up and spot up spots. And then he goes on like a little personal 7-0 run during the stretch when Michigan State needs him. So they got the best version of the 2 guys. I'm with you. I think Indiana's extremely mid. My guess is they're right on the bubble. I mean, I think if you look at Iowa, Indiana, Rutgers, Michigan, those are the 4 teams that are going to kind of make a push at whether they're on or off the bubble this week. So I think it's a big week for the conference. We can obviously get to that later in the show, but I'm with you. I think Indiana's mid, but the fact that they bounce back, they blow them out by 16 or whatever they ended up winning by, it was just nice for Michigan State to kind of put a complete game together, even though, again, the Wings struggled. So
yeah, I look at the minutes. That's what I've done after every game. I box score watch a little bit, and I care more about minutes than I care about anything else with this Michigan State team. And I found it interesting. I mean, Hoggard getting kicked out affected this, and I'm curious what his numbers would have been had he not had any of those issues throughout the game. But he only played 21 minutes, despite being moved into the quote unquote starter spot. Like, he was as productive as he was in 21 minutes, which he played quite a bit off the bench in games this season. Tyson Walker still 18 minutes. Like, that's essentially the same split as far as time goes we've seen all season long, but to see what it did mentally for both of them was impressive. I am curious to see how that plays out, because I think like AJ kind of showed why this should be his job to me. And that's not to say Tyson didn't play great. Like, if Tyson can just come in and be a gunner from 3 and shoot close to the even 40%, he's shooting over 50% of the season. But to me, like that's what Tyson can do, and it's still an important role. But like, AJ's best takes this team to a new level, and he's been at his best in some of the bigger spots of the season. The other number that matters to me, man, we just said Hoggard 21 minutes, Tyson Walker 18 minutes, Jaden Akins 21 minutes after a couple games where Jaden Akins really only played 1 stint in the entire game. It was good to see. He didn't do a ton in the box score. I thought he did a ton if you actually watched the game, though. Cart, where are you at with Jaden Akins? Like, do you think he's going to continue emerging at the expense of a guy like Tyson Walker, or do you think it comes next to the 2 of them still getting their 20 minutes a game each?
Yeah, that's the thing with Akins. I feel like before last game, I was saying that it might have to come at the expense of Tyson Walker because Tyson Walker was struggling. But if Tyson's playing the way he's playing, I think it might have to come at the expense of one of the wing players. Max has been struggling as of late with his shot. Gabe has been struggling as well.
Wait. You just called him Max.
Yeah, I called him Max. That's what he likes to be called.
Is that really where you're at right now with Christie? You have not called him Max by his name he prefers all season long once on this show.
Well,
we're 20 episodes in.
Because he's slumping. He's shooting like Max right now. He's not shooting like he's Cormac. But like he's struggling right now. Gabe has been struggling with this shot and to get in the flow of the offense. And a guy like Akins, you put on the floor, he's going to make an impact defensively at the least, and at least give you energy and a spark plug off the bench. And I think that his play has earned him more minutes. Look, people harp on this Michigan State team trying to establish depth and find depth. Now, with that, I don't want depth to be established by cutting off talent, but because you have depth and because you like to play guys so much, play the guys who are playing their best. Like if I'm pointing to guys who are playing at their highest level right now, I'm pointing to guys like Malik Hall, based off last game, AJ Hogard, and, Marcus Bingham, I think, has been playing at a high level this year. So basically rolling with your dogs and rolling with your talent and rolling who's playing the best. And hopefully, or not hopefully, I know guys like Gabe and Max are going to get it together as far as shot wise going throughout the year. Shooters go through slumps. It happens. Gabe's is a little more concerning for me because he just looks out of it sometimes on the floor, which is like concerning to me. But at the end of the day, I think he's a good shooter. He'll get it together. But I think that Jaden's earned himself some minutes, and I think he has the ability to both get to the rim and make some plays on the offensive end as well that we haven't seen yet. Now, we thought that maybe in the future, looking as him as a Spartan dog in year 2 and year 3, that we kind of get more of that offensive game from him. But I think he has the ability to do some things right now and show us some things. So it was good to see him get extended minutes and overall take out everything with us beating Indiana. I echo what DK said. I think Indiana is a mid team. That's a game we should win, and we did win. So kudos to us for doing that. But take the result out, take everything out. The fact that there was adjustments made in a period where we weren't playing good basketball and we were just all discombobulated. It was good to see. We talked about it on the last episode of Unscripted. Like if shit's not working, start trying to throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. All right. So we had some adjustments. It worked. It was good to see. So, I'm happy, and I feel like everyone else watching, Spartan fans, should be happy as a whole.
So I have 2 big follow-up questions to that. You mentioned Brown and Christie struggling as they have for the last, I guess you could say, couple weeks at this point. Maybe 1 or 2 good games individually mixed in there. But as a whole, like what you're getting from the guys who I think in the non-conference were the most reliable players on this team have suddenly shifted to maybe the least reliable players on this team as far as positional spots go. How concerned are you with that? Let's just go around the horn, like 1 to 5 concern level. How concerned are you with the collective production from Gabe Brown and Max Christie right now? DK, let's go to you first.
I would say a 4. I'm reasonably alarmed about what's going on with Gabe Brown currently. For his first 17 games, he had 1 game that was a non-double digit performance, and it was 9 points. Over his last 7, he's had 5. He's averaging 7.7 points per game, 3.3 rebounds, and shooting 33% from deep. If you take out the 6 for 7 performance at Rutgers, he's 4 for 23 over those 6-game periods, which is 18% from deep. He is not getting his shot up. When he is, he looks to me like he's forcing it. We saw last game where he didn't look comfortable with that pull-up. He just drove into the middle of a guy and got that charge call on him. To me, he hasn't looked overly active on the glass. I think the second half was a little bit better than the first in this Indiana game, but he ended up having a donut against them. And he's in the deep struggles. I think that it really goes to the fact that Akins needs more minutes until Brown gets correct. And I don't know if that's maybe like Brown coming off the bench and getting like just a reset on kind of where this is going for him. I listened to the moving screen yesterday, and there was some talk just about how if Gabe Brown's not getting open shots, it means that the defense is essentially having 1 less help defender in the lane, which I think is true. I mean, there's something to be said about getting blanketed as a defender because of the way that he shot to begin the season. But he's not providing the most upside in the rotation right now at the position. I don't think you can say that. And yes, Akins is not quite the shooter that he is or maybe ever will be. But what he can give you and what he showed a little bit last game was the ability to create looks for both himself and for others. I think the one thing that we've seen during the course of the season is he's gotten a little too comfortable pulling up in that mid-range jump shot. I don't love that shot for him unless he gets to the rim a couple times. We finally saw him get all the way to the rim off it, and I would almost say it was like off his hesitation. It was like his change of speed. Like in some instances, he just hasn't looked 100% comfortable being able to figure out how to get himself all the way to the rim. And his ability to go from 0 to the 3rd gear and just get to the rim. We saw it like kind of on that elbow. I don't know if you remember it, but he took a dribble. He had like a freeze dribble and a hesitation. He took 1 more dribble and it was all the way at the rim for a lay. I think he needs to just continue to be aggressive going towards it. Every time he's on the floor, he's excellent defensively. I think there's a case to make that maybe Christie and Akins are the 2 best perimeter defenders on this team. And I think that he has shown the ability to have kind of that big spot mentality and not be scared of the moment. So for me, until Gabe gets correct, I think you got to keep stealing minutes from him for Akins. The Christie stuff, we've kind of gone around in circles about. I'm not overly worried. He's still contributing in so many different ways to this team, whether it's playmaking, rebounding on the defensive end. I think to a certain degree, he's just kind of hitting that freshman wall. He's played the most minutes of anybody on this team. He continues to play above 30 minutes on a nightly basis. So the staff clearly sees the value there. Would you like a little bit more of that production to come on the offensive side? 100%. But I think ultimately, the concern level is reasonably high for me for Brown, not as much for Christie. I just think he kind of is what he is at this point in the season. I think he needs another full off season to be able to get into the lane and finish through contact. I think that's the biggest thing that's kind of preventing him from being more of an offensive star. So I don't know if we see that this year. I think at this point, though, it's a situation that should be a little bit alarming, because if you get the kind of point guard play that we did yesterday on the game against Indiana, I think you can go places. And if the wings just came to play when the point guards played that well, like, this team could be really good. We have still yet to see this team collectively put like a whole game together at every position, at the center spot, at the wings, at the forwards. Like, when are we going to just get a game where they just blow somebody out because everybody plays well? It feels like maybe the Butler game was the last time we saw both the wings go in the right direction. And I know what we all think about Butler.
So I think that's a really good point, but I think my answer to that is like, I think we'll see that when the rotation isn't 9 guys, because I think it's really hard. Like, even if 5 of 9 play well, which I think happened against Indiana, it still doesn't feel like 5 of 9 played well because so many guys are in and out. You know what I mean? Like, it's easier to point to like a Michigan game against Purdue where it's like, okay, they literally only played 5 guys. All 5 played well. They won the game. Like, Michigan State, even, it's always going to feel like someone plays poorly just because there's so many moving parts. But I loved your point about additional ball handlers. I want to come back to that when we get to my anonymous coach quote, because that's right on brand with what another Big Ten coach said about one of the problems with this Michigan State team. Cart, concern level though, quickly with Christie and Brown, 1 to 5.
Yeah, it's definitely probably up in that 4 range for me as well. More specifically with Brown, it's not just a shooting slump. It's just he doesn't look comfortable out there. I think that getting to this point of the season, coaches in the Big Ten and probably everybody who are going to play moving forward knows that if you can be there on the catch and up on Gabe Brown, that he has not shown the ability in these past couple games to put the ball on the floor. That's why I feel like in these past couple games, you see when he tries to get to that 1 to 2 dribble pull up at the elbow or in the mid range, whenever he shoots it, he's off balance. His shot seems very short, almost herky jerky in some games. Like, it seems kind of broken a little bit. So that might just be a confidence thing. I'm not really sure what I can point to. DK's suggestion about him moving to the bench is, I mean, it's something to maybe look to. I don't know necessarily if I would go that far technically as moving to the bench, but I just think right now you have a guy who's just not confident in his ability and not confident in his game, and it's showing through his jumper, and it's a little bit concerning at this point to me. With Christie, I just think that he is also not helping himself or doing himself any favors by getting really good shots. It seems to me that sometimes he doesn't want to shoot directly off the catch, or he doesn't want to shoot the open one. Sometimes he wants to take 1 to 2 dribbles to get into his jump shot. And sometimes that causes him to take tough 2s, especially like DK mentioned, he's not a guy who right now can go to the basket and finish. So as a defender, you know, he's going to take 1 to 2 dribbles and he's going to pull up. He's not going to blow past you. That makes it a little bit easier to defend him on that end. I still think he's given us a lot on the defensive end at this point, and that's why he's playing the most of the minutes. But when, like I said earlier, you have guys that are struggling on the wing, and I think that's an opportunity to get Jaden Akins in the game and get him minutes. And hopefully Gabe figures it out, because he is a huge part of our team. As we saw in the non-conference and earlier in the year, Gabe was our most consistent player on a night-to-night basis, even on both ends of the floor. So hopefully he figures it out. I think he will, but I am somewhat concerned of what we saw these past couple of games.
Yeah, it's interesting. Christie 2 for 12 in his last 4 games from 3. 3 of those games, he did not make a 3-pointer, single-digit scoring in all 4 of those games. He's just not the same guy that he was in the non-conference right now.
And sorry, last thing with Christie, by the way, him not being able to get to the rim, get to the free throw line, or do anything, like you don't even get to see one go in with him. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like he doesn't. It's either 3 or tough 2s in the mid range. He doesn't have anything at the rim right now. When he goes to the rim, he gets bumped off every time. If any guy has any semblance of weight or anything strength to him, and that's throwing off his whole offensive game. So like DK said, if he can get that rim game, and I think he will develop it moving forward his Michigan State career, it'll open up a whole new bag for him. And seeing one go in at the hoop does wonders for anybody, or the free throw line. So
you just can't get an easy one right now, right?
That's no easy ones.
Nope. And he's been lights out. He was 6 for 6 from the free throw line last game, right? So if he can get himself there, I have no doubt he can make it. It's just he has not been able to get any type of easy shot going right now.
Which is sort of an interesting thing to point out, though, because we're going to talk more about this, but like he's playing next to the guy who leads the country in assist rate. So like I think the concept of like these wings are struggling to get easy looks is a difficult thing for me to square with the point guards they're playing with.
I think it's honestly, I talked about this with you, Greg. I think it's somewhat on the wings that they're not getting easy shots. I think that Christie makes shots harder for himself. And, you know, he's a guy who, unlike Gabe Brown, I think is very good at reading screens, like coming off baseline screens. I think he's very good at fading or curling off of it. Mm-hmm. But like I said, because he can't get to the rim as a defender, you're chasing him. I'm looking like, okay, he's going to do 1 or 2 dribbles. He's going to pull up at this elbow. I just got to go cut him off there. He's not going to be able to blow past me. It makes it a lot easier to defend. And then Gabe has just never been a guy who you're going to set a screen for. He's going to come off it. He doesn't have the ability right now. I don't know if he's ever going to get as a senior, but to come off, get his feet set and come off and raise up and shoot a jumper. Like that's just not what he is. He's he's a set shooter. Those are his limitations. So I don't necessarily put it on the point guards as the struggle for the wings. I think the wings need to do a better job of putting themselves in a better position to score the basketball. And when you do have open looks, take advantage of them and shoot them instead of dribbling yourself into off balance 2s or tough 2s.
Car, what did I say about Gabe Brown's hands and feet? Do you remember the group chat this week?
I something like,
I said he has the bounce and the 3-point shot of Zach LaVine, but he has the hands and feet of a female flute player.
Oh yeah, what?
A female flute player. Like and that's no offense to female flute players, but like anything that's like skill-based technical movements, like he doesn't have that, but he has the bounce and the shot of like an NBA All-Star.
He's always off balance to me. Like he just never looks like he's on balance. That's the only thing, but we can move on. I think John Beeline used to call it Bambi on ice is what he would call with freshmen. Like he just like they don't look right, even if they're in the right spot and they're not comfortable. That's sort of how Gabe Brown looks. And it doesn't help that he's like 6'9" with a hunched over back. That kind of helps. But yeah, I don't know. I'm excited to see where year 2 Christie goes. I know we all think that Max Christie's coming back. We also think he has a very bright NBA future at some point. But like I gotta think year 2 Christie develops some counters to that, where like maybe in a way we're pointing at Gabe Brown where he hasn't developed some of that. I think Max Christie very clearly will develop that and be a lead scorer for this team next year. One last thing on this game, and then we'll move to the other segments. Malik Hall. Like everybody obviously is playing the Malik Hall should be starting card, me included. Everybody also is kind of doing the like, let's give the staff credit. They made an adjustment with Hogarth over Walker. Well, like, yeah, they also need to make another adjustment and get the best player in the starting lineup. Like Malik Hall at this point is Michigan State's best player, and it's not close. I think at some point he finds his way to the lineup. I just think he's too good not to. It's crazy. I guess in light of the conversation on the wings, do you think Malik Hall moving into the lineup has to happen 1-for-1 with Joey Hauser? Like, can Malik Hall step in and play the 3 on this team, on a team where like Brown and Christie have played 30 minutes a game, haven't played well, and the only secondary option is Jaden Akins at the 2? You still need someone at the 3. Is it Pierre Brooks? Is it Malik Hall? Is it nobody? I think it could be Malik Hall. DK, am I crazy for that?
I don't think you're crazy, but I think that he's probably at his best closer to the basket, and that's why he looks a little bit more comfortable. Like, I think he could defend the perimeter. So my only question when you ask like position-wise, can he do that? So he could defend the three, like he can defend the wing. So for me, he could get inserted to that. It would change some of his role in what he's doing. Like he's getting pick and pop stuff. They're posting him up in kind of that mid-range. Speaking to just like not getting open shots for some of the perimeter looks, I think a lot of that has to do with the inability of the team to really have a go-to low post scorer that creates doubles from that position on the court. And I think Malik Hall has started garnering some of that type of attention. The last few games I've kind of watched when he gets doubled what's happened, and he has freed some open perimeter shots because of the double. I think that he's pretty comfortable passing out of it. So to me, I'm with you that he probably needs to be in the starting lineup. When he is on the floor, he needs to be basically the whole offense needs to be run through him. I think if you're looking at like the best case scenario of this team, when he's on the floor, the ball should be in his hands, preferably close as possible to the basket, somewhere in that mid-range area. And I think a lot of the offense can kind of thrive from that perspective. So I don't know quite what to make of it. 24 minutes this game. He did have a little bit of foul trouble. I would like to see him play closer to 30. I guess whether he starts or he comes off the bench to me matters less so much as just make sure that he's playing as many minutes as possible, because that's the best version of this team. So I guess that's kind of a roundabout way to go to it. I don't know.
I'll just say this, like he's, to me, we talked about like, oh, can the staff trust these guys? And I think that's a larger part of the conversation about how they're handling point guards. Like, does he trust AJ Hoggard? Like Hoggard can have a great game and Izzo goes to the presser and it's just like, well, see if he can do it twice in a row. Like he gets high on himself. Like he's literally done that 3 times this season. And Tyson Walker, obviously new to the program. Like that's a guy who has to earn trust. Like Malik Hall's a captain on this team. Like the staff has some sense of trust in this dude. And Malik Hall also, like as much credit as we're giving him, he hasn't always been this good. Like I don't think he was this good in November. I think he was good for a game and then he would have a game where he did nothing. And right now, like the consistency has become like an expectation with him, which is why, like, let's not get cute. Like he needs 30 minutes. The best way to get him 30 minutes is start him and play him 30 minutes. Like he's a captain on the team. Let's just play him like he's a captain on the team. Cart, how strongly do you feel this needs to happen?
I feel extremely strongly that it needs to happen. And I also want to point out, like, this is no slight to Joey Hauser either. I just wanted to say that Joey Hauser's been playing well. I think that this is just a indication of what we've seen from Malik Hall. He has been clearly Michigan State's best player in this stretch run. I think that you can call me being greedy, call it what you want. Like I want the 30 minutes and the start, especially because I'm sick of watching us come out and start slow. Like we are probably the best team in the country at starting slow. Now it changed a little bit with the insertion of AJ Hoggard to the lineup, but I think we can do the same with Malik Hall. I like the things we've seen from Joey Hauser with his effort. I think he's been shooting, almost close to 40%, maybe high, almost high, maybe mid 40s from 3 in conference play. I think having Joey Hauser playing the way he's playing right now off the bench and inserting Malik Hall and giving him those high minutes like he does to others, to the Gaves and the, Max Christie's on this team. I think that it'll be good for this team. And, Greg, you talk about earning trust and things like that. Like you said, earlier in the year, one of the big things with Malik Hall was it was feast or famine. Like we were getting some big Malik Hall games, and then we were getting Malik Hall games where he was just not really making an impact. Right now, on a consistent basis, in no matter how many minutes he's getting, whether he's getting 20 minutes or he's getting, 25 minutes, whatever he's getting, he's producing. So in my eyes, you up the minutes, you up the production. So, and until he proves that that's not the case, then we adjust. But at this point, you got to give that man 30 minutes a game. I think he's doing too many things. He puts pressure on the defense as well. And he might be the best baseline college basketball player in the country. You do not want to see Malik Hall on the baseline, turnaround jumpers, behind the backboard jumpers, had Trace Jackson Davis in hell. Race Thompson, he thinks he's that guy, not that guy. Malik Hall had him in hell. Like he's a mismatch. You got to play that man.
Yeah.
When he hit that shot over the backboard, which we haven't talked about, I think that just kind of sums up the way it's going for him right now. Like you hit that kind of shot, like he let it go and he started running down the court to a certain degree. Like he
ride the hot hand.
Yeah. I guess the other flip side of it is too, your best front court is with Bingham and Hall, and they very rarely get to play together, which to me is maddening, both defensively and offensively. I think you can create so much pressure on the rim when the two of them are in the game. So that goes to speaking to just getting them in the lineup too, but it feels like it's beating a dead horse at this point. I think everybody's been on that. Maybe we were a little bit earlier than that. Like, come on, it's time to start him like a week or two ago. And now everybody is. So I don't know, maybe just start him.
17 Mark Marble, still the easiest betting trend in college basketball. You can bet at 17 minutes, Julius Marble will be at the table ready to go.
Yeah, I wonder if our friends at BetRivers ever offer that prop. They should at this point, although people would make a lot of money off it. All right, I want to go to my anonymous coach quote. So this was from a Seth Davis piece this week where he did this with it was a few quote unquote anonymous Big Ten coaches and asked them about the top teams in the conference. I'm just going to read the 2 paragraphs word for word on Michigan State, and then we'll nitpick at the piece that I find most interesting from this. So here are anonymous Big Ten coaches quotes compiled on Michigan State. They have good players, but they don't have anyone who's elite like they have in the past. They're playing point guard by committee with Walker and Hogard. Christie is solid, but he's young. He's the one guy in their lineup who's not really physical. Defensively, he's still figuring things out. Gabe Brown was great early, but now he's going through the lulls a little bit. They don't have as much of a post presence as they've had in the past. They crash 4 and sometimes all 5 on the offensive glass. So if you can get a rebound there, you can make them pay for that. They're one of the leaders in our league in turnovers. The reason they have those problems is their wing players are not ball handling wings. It puts a lot of pressure on their guards. The last 2 sentences are what I'm most interested in because I hadn't viewed it that way at all, really. As much as Hogard and Walker are ridiculous from an assist rate standpoint and also a ridiculous from a turnover rate standpoint, is it just because no one else on the roster at any position can be trusted to be a playmaker? DK, let's go to you on that.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty spot on statement about relatively to just the state of the team this year, right? Like you're looking at where the shot creation comes from. To a certain degree, it can come from Walker, but he can't really get all the way to the rim and finish. Really, the only guy on the team that has consistently gone all the way downhill and finished from the perimeter is AJ Hogard. But the problem is he can't put pressure on you from either the mid-range or the perimeter. So that kind of limits some of his ability to be able to just suck in the defenses at all times. I think, like we spoke about earlier, maybe Akins is a guy that can continue to do that. You're looking at who is capable of maybe being able to create shots for both themselves and others. To me, he is that guy, right? He was a former point guard. You've got him at the 2 spot now. I don't think that the staff has really given him enough offensive opportunity. They very rarely put him in ball screens. They very rarely draw up plays to be able to get the ball into his hands. And I think we saw, again, kind of re-emphasizing the point I made earlier, we saw his ability to be able to get to the rim. Maybe try to start putting him more into the offense. I think that they're spot on in terms of there's a ton of pressure on the point guards to be able to create for the rest of the roster because Aaron Henry left out the door. We only had one creator last year, and that was him. This year you have 1.5. And if you count Akins as a half, maybe you have 2 guys, between Tyson and him. So I think that that's pretty accurate. I guess my counterpoint with that would be there's not a ton of guys really in the league that can create outside of like the top, main guys like Ivy, Davis. Murray's more of a forward anyways. Like how many guys in the league from that wing position are really creators? So I think that that's true, but I think it can also be applicable to a ton of other Big Ten teams this year. I just think that the wing play after it got gutted by the NBA last season in the conference is kind of down as a whole.
I think you're right with that. I think the only tweak I would have, because there are no creating wings unless you can, I guess Ivy counts as that, but Ivy's just a superstar. It doesn't matter how you want to classify it. I think the counter would be like some of the better teams you can point to, or not even better, but just like upper half of the conference teams. Like Illinois has a point guard, and then they have a guy like Trent Frazier next to him, or they have Alfonso Plummer, or they have Curbelo. Like they have 3 guys that can sort of split it where 2 of them are on the floor together. Wisconsin, they have Davis. They also have Chucky Hepburn. They also have Brad Davison. Michigan, it's not, I'm not saying Michigan's a good team, but like Eli Brooks being a secondary guy for them matters. That to me is like where if Michigan State just had, and maybe it's Akins, maybe Akins is the answer. He just needs to play more. But it's like Hoggard and Walker don't play together much. And I don't know that you want to play them together much. So whoever is on the floor, it really leaves them in a spot of like, it's your show. Go get shots for Gabe Brown. Go get shots for Max Christie. And as much as like maybe that's helped lead to the turnover issues, I also think from a weird standpoint, like it may inflate their assist rates a little bit too. Like if there was a secondary guy, does AJ Hoggard lead the country in assist rate? He's probably still very high, but I don't know that any of us would point and say like he's the best assist guy in the country.
But the thing is though, you say that about his assist rate, but also AJ Hoggard's assist rate right now is probably in 20 minutes a game. Like,
yeah, but rate doesn't matter with how many minutes.
That is true. No, okay, yeah, good point there. But I mean, he's probably averaging about 5 assists a game right now.
5 a game, yeah. And look, I don't.
His last stretch, he's been really good in that. He had 2 goose eggs like in the point column, but he's averaging 6.1 assists per game to 1.7 turnovers over his last 6 games, which is obviously really, really
incredible.
Good.
Yeah,
he's getting to the free throw line a ton too, and we didn't really touch on that. He's over his last 6 games, he's shooting almost 80% from the free throw line, getting there almost 3.5 times a game. I think that's a huge swing factor to why he's continuing to progress as a player.
That's also huge that he can progress as a jump shooter in the future. Because if he gets somewhat of a semblance of just a threat from 15 feet, like it would open up so many things.
I think he just needs to develop that floater too. If he could just develop a little 1-footed floater.
I'll tell you right now, DK, AJ ain't getting no floater. He's not a floater player.
I trust him developing a floater maybe more than I do a mid-range jump shot. I'm going to toss that out there.
Yeah, he ain't a floater. He's trying to get to the cup.
I want to just put this on record. I want to officially declare myself as an AJ Hoggard guy if I haven't already. I've declared myself a Hoggard guy in relation to Tyson Walker, but I want to put myself just objectively. I'm in Hoggard's camp. I think by the time that guy's a senior, he's an all-conference player. I think he is a killer. Like just mentally, he's chirping dudes. Like as a Michigan fan, as a part-time Michigan basketball fan, I'm pretty terrified of AJ Hoggard. That dude shows up for big games. So I don't mean when I raised the concerns about like, oh, his assist rate would come down if they had somebody else. I don't mean that to minimize how good he is, because I think he's fantastic. I actually just mean it to say like maybe next year projecting to that roster, Akins projects to a lot of minutes at the 2. And I think that helps him. I think you see a more reined in AJ Hoggard when he has somebody else to play off of.
I think if you're looking for the next evolution of the roster, what is Cart doing? He's recording this.
I needed that AJ Hoggard monologue in my memories, and I'm keeping that because I'm going to go back to the start of the year for the AJ Hoggard takes, and we're going to combine those. So I just needed that for my memories. Don't mind me.
Oh my God, that's so funny. I think we can all agree that this version that we've seen in spots this season of AJ Hoggard and maybe the ceiling of what we all thought he could be is much higher. I always thought that he had a pretty comfortable floor. I compared him to maybe like Tiger Campbell last season, where I think he's a guy that if he controls the ball and he doesn't turn it over, he can be a high assist guy, kind of be a team leader in spots. I know Campbell had a really nice run in the tournament, but for the most part, he's not like a score first type guy. And I think that, we have to maybe recalibrate some of the expectations, because the upper class version that we can potentially get at AJ Hoggard is going to be a much better point guard than I think any 3 of us foresaw. And that's been a nice little surprise for this season for sure.
Yeah. And Cart loves it, but he's a gamer. Like he's chirping.
No, you thought I was joking. AJ Hoggard in my book is a certified top 5 Michigan State point guard of all time, because in the first start of the season, he got a dog ass stat line, and 2, he got ejected for chirping. Like I resonate with that type of information. I like that type of game. I like seeing, like DK said, it was good to see like a dog, like some fight. Like when we talked with Brandon Wood, we talked about all these players in the past, and like he talked about himself like being a Spartan dog and like being an alpha. And even though maybe Hoggard doesn't have like the alpha skill set as far as like the jumper and everything, at least in his mind, AJ Hoggard knows he's a dog and thinks he's a dog. Like he he has that mentality and has the ability to be that, dog. And I think Malik Hall has that same ability. And also to comment on your quote, Greg, first of all, that was Brad Underwood who said that, the anonymous coach. I can tell by the way, he loves talking to the press. He loves all types of anonymous quotes and throwing stuff out there. I know 100% fact that was Underwood, but he also made some good points because that really is our team in a nutshell. Like that's pretty accurate. I think that when we look back on this year, one of the things we might question with the staff or kind of look down on, or I do personally with the staff, is that early in the year when Tyson Walker was struggling, we didn't get Jaden Akins any type of point guard minutes. Like I thought that was a great opportunity early in the non-conference or any point in the non-conference or early Big Ten play to get him more involved, get him some more minutes handling the ball, so that he would be more comfortable with it, and maybe take some pressure off of those guys handling the ball. And I think, maybe I think personally he has the ability to do so. So that is kind of a thing that I think we should have established earlier in the year. But, we kind of are where we are. We have 1.5, maybe 2 point guards. If Tyson comes on, hashtag 6th man of the year, Tyson Walker. Campaign is starting
Stop
now.
That. No, we've shut that down as soon as you just.
I don't. And whenever you all want to join, I got the campaign open.
To your point about Akins, though, like I keep laughing because Izzo had another quote in his press conference last week. I think that was like, it was about the transfer portal stuff, and he's like, Tyson's really hurt by the fact that he couldn't sit out this year. And I just want to be like, what the hell was your plan? If Tyson was going to sit, was Hogar going to play 30 minutes then? Was Akins going to play 10 minutes as a backup? Like, that's what you're saying you wish would happen? Because if you wish that would happen, just do it. Like, it makes no sense to be like, God, I wish Tyson could be sitting out this year. Like, you're playing the dude 22 minutes a game. Like, stop doing that if you don't think that he's ready for it. It makes no sense to me. We're running over.
Just needs to end. He just needs to stop talking about the portal.
Yeah,
because guess what? If Marcus Bingham leaves, you need to go get a center next year. And we didn't really touch on that position, but if we're looking at the next version of what this team can be, I'm very optimistic at the point guard spot. If Brown leaves, I think maybe we gotta be careful how I want to say this, but I think maybe the version of the team, because you're going to allow Akins to play close to 30 minutes, could be maybe better than what it would be if he returned. I'm going to toss that out there. You have Holloman to back him up, which again, you're going to get to play 2 guards. You're going to get to put, 3 point guards on the floor, maybe in some spots if you wanted to go that route. And I think that if you're just kind of looking up and down the roster, Kohler's going to be able to back up Hall, whether Hauser returns or not. I guess that remains to be seen. The one spot that absolutely needs to be figured out if Marcus Bingham leaves, which I think we kind of all feel that that's probably going to happen. They got to get a rim protector. They got to get some guy they can play 25 minutes per game next year. Because despite Marble having maybe the best game he's had in a long time, I just don't think that there's a starting caliber Big Ten center on the roster if Bingham leaves, and Bingham hasn't even been able to play starter minutes. So,
yeah,
maybe there's not one on the team this year either. So
I will be so curious to see how that plays out, because we're literally looking at a landscape right now where the National Player of the Year front runner is a transfer center, Oscar Tshiebwe, who ended up at Kentucky and is putting up 20 games every given night. Now, in order to get a guy that impactful, you have to be someone who's pro transfer portal, maybe publicly. Like, I don't think Tom Izzo is going to ever insert himself in the Oscar Tshiebwe recruitment and compete with John Calipari or the other 10 best coaches in the country who are living off the transfer portal right now. So that leaves me very intrigued. Like, he's got to get one. We all agree on that.
He's got to stop saying it publicly too. Like, maybe a guy wants to consider us. Like, you're throwing every chance or anything we got out the window before we even get a shot to throw our hat in the ring because you hate the transfer portal so much. What's so bad about the transfer portal? Like, even if you don't want to go in it, like, just let it happen.
You had 2 starters for you this year from the transfer portal. Don't be a hypocrite.
Like, if you
stop being a hypocrite.
That's what I'm saying. Like, come on, Thomas. Like, let's not do this.
Also, last quip, you mentioned if Joey Hauser comes back, where's Joey Hauser going to go?
He can go over to Europe. He can go wherever he wants to.
Isn't he? He's a junior, isn't he?
Technically, he's a senior. I mean, I guess he could come back. Here's my thought on that. I have no issue whatsoever about Joey Hauser. I think he's played admirably, basically after the first 10 games, and he slugged off that slow start, and he's performed very well as a role player. the staff can't wrap their head around the fact that that's what he is. Like the last game, he played 16 minutes. Perfect. He's a 15 to 16 minute per minute guy that should be coming off the bench and playing a role. If you told me that that was going to be his role next year, I would gladly love for him to come back. But guess what? I don't think it would be. We're still going to be talking about a 50-50 split between Malik Hall, who's going to be our best player next year, a potential all-conference type guy, maybe a first two-team guy. And so it's not that I want Joey to leave. It's that I think that if he stays, the staff is not going to be able to minimize his minutes, particularly another year with the program. It's just not going to happen. And to me, that's kind of the problem with the staff. It goes back to the point where if Foster Lawyer and Thomas Kithier were on this team, both guys would be getting minutes right now and we would be losing our minds. So that's a problem. That's a problem. So
I'm telling you right now, I'm clipping this. Like you and Carter's reaction while you were saying that is so priceless.
I mean, I don't know how else to say it. I love the staff. I think that it was nice to see them make adjustments, but I think that if he was to return, we would run into an issue where, Malik Hall's not going to play close to 30 minutes next season, and he absolutely needs to. So that's my only concern with it. And I think Jackson Kohler can kind of give you what he's going to give you offensively, and he's going to be way more of a bucket down low in the paint, which they need.
Yeah, I honestly feel like Joey I don't even know what his next step in life is, but I feel like Joey's just ready to move on. Like, I don't even think he likes East Lansing.
I've never seen, listen, I get
I'm
the
just
sentiment.
saying, like some people are just done with hoop. Like
we're not, he has a year of eligibility left. He's going to use that. He's not going. He's like,
but the thing is though, when guys have years of eligibility left, it's not just about hoop eligibility. They're trying to get more eligibility to live.
Joey Hauser's not Foster Lawyer or Thomas Kithier though. Like he's shooting above 40% in conference play from three. Like we've said, he's playing well as a role player. You guys are right. Like we need to get him out to get Malik Hall his role, but that's on the staff. That's not on Joey Hauser. And looking forward to next year anyway, like, at the very least, we got to see what happens to Bingham in the center spot, because if there's no center on this roster, Hauser and Hall as a front court is the best option they've got. And that's a lineup they've played this year.
Greg, we can't depend on the staff to make the right choices. We don't got to do like the whole, like when people smoke cigarettes and they do little, nicotine packages. No, we can't do that. We need full cold turkey. Don't even give them the chance to play Joey Hauser more minutes than Malik Hall. We gotta just not buy the cigarettes. Just cut it off completely.
I may be on the island, but I'm still out here saying there's a productive version of Joey. I think we're seeing a productive.
We are seeing it. We're seeing it in like DK.
That productive version can't play 26 minutes a night.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know, but that the fact that that's turned into hope he takes his career elsewhere. Like he's a good rotation player.
Acting like we didn't wish him well.
He has a year left. I hope he uses that year at Michigan State, and instead everyone still wants him out, which is nuts.
Marquette homecoming loading.
It'd be just the staff needs to just tell themselves his name's not Joey Hauser. His name's Kenny Kaminsky, and then it makes way more sense. Like just consider him Kenny Kaminsky and play him 12 minutes a game.
You know where Kenny Kaminsky ended his carear?
I do know. I shouldn't have made that
in the back.
All right. We're round the horn. We're overtime, so we'll fly through these last ones. Preview of the two games this week. We got Penn State at home. Michigan State is a 2.5 or on the road, a 2.5 point favorite at Penn State. Pretty trappy place to play, to be honest. And then a home game against Illinois where Ken Pom has Michigan State favored by 3. Quickly on Penn State in conference play at home. They have won 3 of their last 4, beating Rutgers, Iowa, and Indiana, all at home. They lost to Michigan by 1, a game that they were up 10 in the first half. I'm just going to pose the question as this to both of you, and we'll go quickly through this. Over or under 1.5 wins for Michigan State in these 2 games this week? Carter, let's go to you first.
Oh, man, this is tough. I think it's unfortunately more likely under.
Which one do you think they lose?
I think they lose to Penn State.
Oh, that's disgusting.
Unfortunately, like it's trappy. Penn State's low key, kind of just like scrappy, tough. If they slow the game down, I think the reason we beat Penn State when we played them at the Breslin Center is because we were able to get up and down the court and run and John Harar, if I pronounce that correctly, struggled, I think, to keep up with our bigs running up and down the floor and getting out in transition. They're a sneaky good team. I love Shrews as the coach. I think he's going to form something there at Penn State eventually. But, you know, I think we lose one of the two games. I'm going to go under on the 1.5 because I just don't feel confident we go 2-0.
DK?
This is a big week. I think if you lose one of these games, you're out of the title conference hunt. You got to win both of them. So I think that what they showed us against Indiana comes into play tonight. I think that they beat PSU. I think that there's a chance that if they get off to a good start, they could beat them handily. I'm not going to make that prediction, but I think that there's I feel much better because of the adjustments made about coming into this game. And Illinois kind of played poorly lately. They got to go to Rutgers on Wednesday, so they get one less travel day. Then they got to travel to us. That's going to be a really physical game against Rutgers. Whether they win or lose that, I think that they're going to be in a dogfight. This is a pretty good spot for Michigan State to come out 2-0, and that's where I lean for that. I think that they're going to find a way.
Love that. This is a massive week.
That's how I felt coming in to play Northwestern at home and then Kevin McHale on us. But anyways,
Illinois at Rutgers at Michigan State. They're holding a 1-game lead in the loss column on Purdue, Wisconsin, Michigan State, and Ohio State. That's a critical week for them. I could easily see 0-2 in that. I could easily
and we know Illinois down the stretch. That, you know what I'm saying? Buttholes get tight when things get to going.
All right, that's a good segue. I want to fire through how many teams is it? I think it's 9. There's 9 teams that can reasonably make the NCAA tournament in the Big Ten. I want to fire through them and have each of us say how far those 9 teams will go in March. We don't need to spend a ton of time on it, but let's rapid fire through this. The teams we're not going to include in this exercise: Northwestern, Penn State, Minnesota, Maryland, Nebraska. I don't see any reasonable path other than winning the conference tournament for those 5 teams. So let's start at the bottom. This is sorted by Ken Pom efficiency rankings in conference, I believe. We're going to start with Indiana, who is 16-8 on the season, 7-7 in conference play. Will Indiana make the tournament? And if they do, how far will they go? I'm going to go out on a limb and say Indiana misses the tournament. DK?
Agreed. Yep, I'm with you. I don't see this version. I think they suck, to be honest.
Yeah, misses.
And TJD's career to not make a single tournament is depressing. Should have come to Michigan State, big fella. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, they have all 6 of their remaining games are top 100 opponents. Some road game at Minnesota, at Ohio State, at Purdue, home to Wisconsin, home to Rutgers. They have some dicey spot games left. Mike Woodson, that just gives me shivers thinking about them.
Good team at home cannot get their shit together on the road, and that's been the case for a while.
They were like 14-3, I think. Okay, Michigan, 13-10, 7-6 in conference play right now. My take on Michigan has been that for the last month, they're playing like a clear 6-7 seed level team. Their non-conference was just so bad. They need to go 4-3 in their final 7 to even have a shot, and they have no cupcakes left. Cart, where do you see Michigan landing?
I think they make the tournament. I think that they're going to be a first weekend out team, though. I think they can win one game in the tournament, but I think they'll lose before they get to the Sweet 16.
So you'll go round to 32 is where you see the Wolverine season ending.
Yeah.
It'll probably take an upset, honestly, to get there. I'm surprised you even give them that much credit. DK, where are you on the Wolverines?
Yeah, I think they're going to sneak in. I would love to see them in the first 4 in, just so all the Michigan fans have to eat crow about how we didn't make the tournament last season. That just like, if that happens, it's going to be so perfect. Come into the season, preseason top 5, end up at the end in the first 4 in, and we're going to have to see everybody wiggle on Twitter to try to figure out, are we in the tournament or not? Yeah, motherfucker, you're in the tournament, but not the season that you thought you were going to have. So I think that they get in. I think that they get in. So what do you think? If they go 4-3, like what type of seed line do they end up making? Like, are they a 10 or is it like a 12 and they just sneak in? Or like,
I think if they're 4-3 down the stretch here, unless their 4 wins are against the best teams, which won't happen, I think they're a first 4 team. I don't think they're as close to in as people think they are. Look, their non-conference
wins, too many losses.
Their non-conference was just so bad. I mean, this is a totally different script if they just steal the Seton Hall game that they were up 10 with 5 minutes left in, or Don't lose to UCF. Like, they had 100 different chances to have this not play out as it has, but now they're in a spot where, like, really, you got to go 5-2 to know you're in, and they're not going to go 5-2 because they have a really hard schedule down the stretch here. So I think
they beat Iowa this week. They play Thursday, right?
Man, at Iowa is just a really tough
Iowa's just put up like 100 points back-to-back games. They're just blazing right now.
I'll say this: they'll get one of the two. They're at Iowa and at Wisconsin this week, and I don't think there's any way they get both. I think they get one of the two and keep hope alive, and then they got to take care of business at home from there. But yeah, if they go 4-3, they probably need a win in the Big Ten tournament, and they're probably in the first 4 in. So I'll land on that. I think they end in the first 4 in, and I think they win that game, and then they lose in the round of 64. Let's move up the list to Iowa, who's 17-7, is scoring 130 points a game right now. I think Iowa gets in, and they lose in the first round. DK?
What's the remaining schedule? Do you have that handy?
Yes.
Because to me, they're not a tournament team right now. That 17 or 18 wins, whatever they have, is all fluff. The top of their schedule was like against 300 plus teams for the first 5. They played nobody in the non-conference. So,
yeah, Iowa has 2 wins against top 75 teams.
They're 0-5 in the quad 1 games they've played right now. And I want to say, I think that they only have 1 potential quad 1 game left. So I don't know how
they have a couple left. They're home to Michigan, at Ohio State, home to Michigan State, at Nebraska, home to Northwestern.
Michigan's not top 30 in the net right now, though, right? That's how they do. It's top 30 on the net. If you're
no, but they have at Ohio State, at Michigan, at Illinois, all left on their schedule. So they have quality opportunities, although likely losses, but quality win opportunities.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I think maybe you're right. Maybe they sneak in too. Maybe Indiana's the odd man out, and I know we're going to get to Rutgers. I think 2 of the 4 bubble teams make it in the conference. I'm apt to say Indiana's for sure out. I don't trust them at all. And then it's going to be maybe between Iowa and Rutgers for me, and who ends up getting that last bid for the conference.
Cart, Iowa?
I think it's iffy they make it in, but if they do, first game, they're out of there.
Okay, jumping to the last bubble team here. Rutgers, 15-9, 9-5 in the conference right now. The most absurd resume of all time. I think they're 5-1 in quad 1 games, and they have losses at home to Lafayette, and they lost at Massachusetts. They lost at DePaul. They lost at Minnesota, at Penn State, home to Maryland. They've literally lost to all the worst teams on their schedule and beaten all the great teams in the Big Ten, which is nuts. Here's my take on Rutgers. I think that they are actually playing really good basketball right now. I think their season as a whole makes no sense, but I think right now they're a top 6 team in the conference. I think they have a bunch of good games left on their schedule, and they've been great in good games. And I think Geo Baker, Ron Harper, and Paul Mulcahy is a top 2 or 3 trio in this conference, as crazy as that sounds. So I think they find a way. I think they scratch and claw to get the resume done. And I actually think they win a game in the NCAA tournament too. I'll put them into the round of 32. Cart, what do you think?
I'm in on that too. I think that they'll be able to get there, and I think they'll win a game. So round of 32 for me.
DK?
They get Illinois at home Wednesday, I believe it is. They have to win that for me. They got some opportunities at home for big time wins to finish the season. That I think this one's a huge swing one. If you can get this under your belt, I think you're feeling a lot better. It's almost like that Michigan-Purdue situation where you have that quality top 15 win under your belt. And I think it's going to be really hard for the selection committee to keep them out. They've been playing well. Like you said, they're a tournament team right now. They just dogged it in the non-conference and put themselves in an awful hole.
They already have a top 15 win, though. They already beat Purdue.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good test for the bracketology folks. Like, how much do bad losses really matter here?
That is the craziest run. I mean, not the craziest run, but that is like a run like no one saw coming if they beat Illinois. Like this stretch they've been on is absolutely just
Paul McKay's been unbelievable. I think Amaruye gives them exactly what they were missing, just kind of like a physical presence inside. He's dunking everything.
Mm-hmm. Mulcahy leads the conference in assists per game. It's crazy. Like, Paul Mulcahy leads the Big Ten in assists per game. And
he's a mismatch problem. He's 6'6". He's physical. He just kind of backs guys down from the top of the key. He's been really good.
Yeah, I've been telling Cart he's hawk-ezzing people. That's my verb for what Paul Mulcahy does. All All right. The 5 teams that are for sure going to make the NCAA tournament. Let's talk about how far they go quickly. Ohio State, 15-6, 8-4. I'll kick this off because Cart knows where I stand. I think this team loses in the first round. I think this team is the most fraudulent, quote unquote, good team in the conference this year. I think they are basically Purdue on defense without the offensive versatility that Purdue has. And I know they're good on offense, but it's entirely EJ Liddell and Malachi Branham to me. And that's too one-dimensional for a team come March. We saw them get exposed to an Oral Roberts team who, yes, was really good, but like any team that can score can keep up with Ohio State in March. I think they lose first round. Cart?
I think the sting of last year and EJ Liddell and his greatness that he has been this year, they will lose in the Sweet 16, but they will make a Sweet 16.
DK?
I lean Cart's way, Sweet 16.
I'm gonna have to find a way to make some money off you guys on this one because I just do not trust this team. Michigan State is next, 18-6 overall, 9-4 in the conference. DK, Spartan Hoops expert, resident Spartan leader of the fan base. You go first on this one.
Sweet 16. I think they got to make it. You got to get to the second weekend this year. I think it's a win. The way that the expectations were coming to the season, finish top 5, top 4 in the conference, make the Sweet 16, bring back most of the essential pieces to be able to maybe build upon next year. But I think you got to make a Sweet 16. That's where I'm going to go.
Art?
Final 4. I ain't no hope. I'm kidding. Nah. Sweet. I feel the same as DK. I think Sweet 16 is a must. Like it's a must that we get there. It's time, and I'm sick of hearing Greg's Sweet 16 stats as well. I'm so sick of it.
But Sweet 16's Final Fours, March runs aren't made off of quote unquote, it's a must. Like, I agree with you that for all the dialogue, like it is a must, but like
it's a must that we get to that second weekend and then we'll take it from there. But let's get there.
It's a must, but is this team good enough to get there? Is my question.
Yes.
Like, I think they are. Like, there is a world where this team makes a Final Four. There is a world where this team is good enough to get hot. They need the right draw, all of that. But do I trust them to? That would require me to trust the staff to play the right guys. And if we get to that point by March, I'm in. If we get Malik Hall playing 30 minutes a game, I'm in on this team. Until that happens, like, I just have no trust that they can win back-to-back games in a 2-day turnaround with a center who might play 10 minutes or might play 30, with the best player coming off the bench, and with no idea of let's wait and see if Hoggard does this 2 games in a row. I guess I love Hoggard and think he should, but still too many questions for me. I'm going to call them a round of 32 team right now, draw dependent, but we will see. I hope that changes. If Malik Hall gets in the lineup, I probably feel differently about that. Wisconsin, third, 19-5, 10-4. If you look at efficiency margin metrics, Wisconsin is like the 9th best team in the Big Ten this season, but they're tied for second in the loss column, which is ultimately what matters. Have you swung negatively on Wisconsin, Cart, as a lot of people have?
Yeah, I think that they'll make it to the round of 32. I would honestly lean that Wisconsin's going to be a heavy pick for people to lose that first game. I think they peaked too early. I'm kind of out. The shine of them wore off a little bit.
DK?
I'm somewhere split on this because I think Johnny Davis is that special. And I think that their style of play is never going to let them separate from teams, but it's also going to keep them close. They're old. They got Brad Davison back another year. Like, we didn't think they were very good last year, and they blew the shit out of UNC. So I think that they could make a Sweet 16. It depends where they end up on the seed line. If they stay a top 5 seed line, I think they make a Sweet 16. If they somehow bottom out towards the end of the season and they're like a 6, 7, anything higher than that, I think that they'll round to 32 for me.
I'm in on Wisconsin, and it feels weird to say that. I'm leaving them as a Sweet 16 team for now. I think that Johnny Davis is ultimately this team's offense, and I think Johnny Davis in March, I just trust will be the best version of Johnny Davis. I also hate the phrase peak too early. So by default, when Cart said that, I had to move them into the Sweet 16. Like, playing well at any time is a good thing. Like, let's not penalize the team for being really good early. I think they can still find that again later. Right now, like, Wisconsin's problem is Davis hasn't been shooting 50% from the floor and 40% from three.
He's looked more like Chase Audige as of late than Johnny Davis.
That is wildly disrespectful. I buy Wisconsin still figuring it out. Let's go to number 2 in the conference, Purdue. 22-4 overall, best record overall, 11-4 in the conference. May not win this conference with how dicey they've been. They almost lost to Maryland at home over the weekend. I've said all year Purdue's a Final Four team. I don't care what the metrics tell me about their defense. They remind me of 2013 Michigan, and like they're just kind of floating through the regular season. They're going to turn it on when it matters, and they're a top 3 talented team in the country. Watching that Maryland game changed everything for me. I don't trust this team anymore. I don't trust Matt Painter at all. He literally has Jaden Ivey standing in the corner, not touching the ball for 6 straight possessions in the final 4 minutes. I just think they're doomed. I think Eric Hunter is going to dribble the ball off his foot in a 1-possession game with a minute left because he's trying to get a post entry to Travion Williams, who hasn't scored in 12 minutes while Zach Edey's on the bench. Too many questions. I'm out. I'll call them Elite 8 because I think they're that talented, but there's no way they make a Final Four. DK?
Yep, that's where I'm at, Elite 8. You can't trust the defense. They can't string together consistent stops. Their insistence on playing through the post when you have a top 5 NBA pick, I think that's really hurt him. I really do. I think that in some instances they need to just let him kind of take control of games and spots. And during the first 20, 30 minutes they do. But when it comes down to crunch time, the insistence to continue to just pound the ball in the post instead of give it to your NBA player is maddening to me. I think that if they don't make a Final Four, I'm not sure if Matt Painter does in the next 10 years, because I think this is a special group, and it will be a waste of talent if you do not get Jaden Ivey to a Final Four this year.
Cart.
Book of Cart 3:15. Thou shalt not take the ball out of my lottery pick's hands at any time. Thou shalt not turn my lottery pick into a role player. We don't condone that nonsense. Elite 8, Painter's fumbling the bag for me.
Yeah, we're all on
that
the same
hurts
page.
me because I want this team to make a Final Four.
The Painter agendas are going to take a huge hit if they don't make a Final Four. You have a top 5 talented team in the country, in my opinion, and the inability to get this team to buy in defensively is just maddening. Like, they have decent enough athletes. I understand there's some deficiencies at the center spot, but they have some guys that can play defense. I don't know. I've been wholly disappointed with the way that it's been going for them. I don't understand them.
Yeah, this was the 34th best defense in the country last year, and they lost nobody. Why are they worse defensively? Zach Edey playing more minutes is not that much of a reason to go from 34th to 116th defensively. It's insane. And yeah, Painter's looking weird in the light right now. I said, as far as Painters go, he literally is convincing everyone he's Leonardo da Vinci, but he's just like a little 6th grader playing with finger paint right now. He's a mess. All right, Illinois. Actually, last thing on Purdue, how funny would it be? Sorry, Purdue fans, but how funny would it be if this team ends up with 0 banners on the season? They are so damn good. They might not win the regular season conference. They might not make a Final Four. And I don't can they win 4 straight with that defense in Indy in March?
They can play that number 1 video on loop. And that's all they'll have for the rest of the year. That might be the reason.
That might be the moment.
To the tune of One Shining Moment when everybody's just calling in or something. We'll definitely montage that. If they don't win at 1 banner, like Big Ten tourney title, Big Ten regular season, Final Four, you got to have one of those checked off this season.
Yeah, have to. All right, Illinois, last but not least, the other program that I'm rooting ends up with 0 banners, although I think I'm in a tough spot for that right now. They're 18-6 overall, 11-3 in conference play. I still think this is off the top of my head, but I think they're 12-1 when Andre Curbello's not playing and 6-5 when he is. That may have improved lately because he's been playing, but where does Illinois end their season? The team that has made 1 Sweet 16 since I was in 4th grade.
Who are you going to first?
Whoever. Carl, let's go to you first.
I'll go first. I'll go first because I flipped on this. I was Final Four caliber with Illinois, but this might be a hot take. I think that they do not make a Sweet 16 again this year.
Wow.
This is the thing for me. I think that it's going to get to a point where I think they've done a great job right now with playing basketball, where they have Trent Frazier hitting shots, Plummer hitting shots on the outside, and there's still teams around the country who have chosen to play one-on-one against Kofi Coburn, which I think is just an awful decision. You cannot play that man one-on-one. Wisconsin played him one-on-one, and you got a 40 ball put on your head, and it was one of the easiest 40 balls of all time. With that said, like when Kofi plays the best centers or better centers in the conference, he struggles. He really does. So God forbid they match up with a center who can maybe not, I mean, he's not going to stop Kofi, but you make Kofi go like 8 for 18, 8 for 19 when he's shooting 5 feet from the basket. I think there's a way to beat this team. I don't think Brad Underwood's going to completely take the ball out of Andre Curbello's hands. I honestly think he's going to start integrating him more and giving the ball more. And I don't know. I got a funny feeling that this team loses that second game in the tournament, loses in the round of 32. The stats might not back it up, but just call it my own intuition.
I love your intuition. DK?
I think that when they get out of conference, they're going to feel a little bit better about themselves. I know the non-conference didn't go great for them this season, but I think it was a result of the Coburn being out for a period of time, then Curbelo, the flow of players. I think Elite Eight for me, you surround it with like 40% shooters against one of the more physically dominating players in the entire country. I think that anything short of a Sweet 16 for them would be an embarrassment. I think that they'll make an Elite Eight and they'll run up into a team that has equally or better front court players, like Cart said, and they end up stumbling. But I think that Elite Eight is the kind of the ceiling for this team.
So I'm going to side with Cart. I think this team loses round of 32 at best, as crazy as that sounds. I think this team could lose in the first round, depending on what seed they get. If they work their way up to the 2 line, doubt it. But like if they're 3, maybe even a 4, if they struggle down the stretch here, like could they lose to a good 13 seed? I think they could. I don't trust this team's mental makeup at all. I just watched them up 16 points against Northwestern. And then like Chase Audige made a floater, and then they all just like held their breath for 15 minutes after that. Alfonso Plummer took a transition 3 with 1 minute and 45 seconds left in the game, up 5 with 30 seconds on the shot clock. I don't trust these guys at all. And this is individual specific to this team, let alone the 20 years of tournament history that is going to weigh on this team's shoulders. Also, like, look at their schedule. I know we talked about the non-conference, DK, but like their best win is at Iowa. Other than that, like a home game against Michigan State, that's it. Like their best non-conference win was a neutral site game against Kansas State. Like this team has not beaten great teams. They lost twice to Purdue. They've got another against Michigan State on the road coming up. They've got at Rutgers. They've got at Michigan, like home to Ohio State and home to we're going to see who this Illinois team really is down the final 3 weeks of the season. And my suspicion is that they're going to look a little funny at the end of those 3 weeks is all I'm going to say.
So who wins the conference? Because we just shit on basically every team in the conference and said we don't think they're as good as we talked about.
It's going to be a 4-way tie or something.
I think it's going to be a tie, some collection of that just hodgepodge of 5 teams with 4 losses right now.
Oh, in Illinois.
How many losses total for the win in the conference then?
6. I think it falls to 6. I mean, I'll say this. If a team ends with 5 losses, they win the conference. Maybe outright. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably fair.
But yeah, come March, man, like I got 0 Final Four teams and 2 Sweet 16 teams in this group. I think this is going to be another stinky March.
I think when you look across the board, though, who do you feel confident about? Like in a lot of these conferences, like the Big East, do you feel very comfortable saying they have got multiple teams that are going to make it past the Sweet 16?
No,
like, I don't know. Like the Big 12 is pretty strong. The SEC is pretty strong.
I literally probably only have one team in the country that I feel absolutely confident is going to make a Final Four, and that's Gonzaga.
Yeah, I think SEC, the top, I feel really good about. Big 12, even like I know there's questions with Kansas, but like between them and Baylor and Texas Tech, like I like those 3 maybe better than I like Purdue for March. But yeah, other than that, like it's a wide open year, which should be good for the Big 10. If it's not good for the Big 10, we're going to have some takes after the season. Boys, it's a work day, and I've held you for over an hour, so I appreciate you both for that. DK, give the Spartan Hoops plug, please, to the people.
Yep, I appreciate it, my friend. SpartanHoops.com. You can find me at SpartanHoops_DK on Twitter. Got all the best content for your MSU basketball-related needs.
Cart, final words.
You can find me at Carter Elliott __. That's 2 underscores because the 1 underscore was taken. Don't come at me. DK, always appreciate you coming on, talking Michigan State hoops. Got the end of the year coming up, got some games coming up. We'll see once again where we're at. If we decide to have this talk a week from now, it could be a whole different type of tone.
I know we'll do a pulse check. The mental and emotional roller coaster of Carter Elliott. I've just been listening along to the podcast, the highest of highs, the lowest of lows.
That's pretty much what it is. That's what you get. That's what Greg signed up for when we decided to do this with me.
Can I offer a quick proposal for the stretch run of the season? For every loss Michigan State has, you have to add an underscore to your Twitter handle. And if Michigan State wins the Big Ten or ties for winning the Big Ten, I'll never make fun of it again.
Okay, deal.
Actually,
no, because then what if people are trying to find me on Twitter or do something? There's like, where's Carter at? Like, he added an underscore.
You can come up with a different punishment, maybe. Like, I'll add undersores or something if they win it. But I would like to propose that.
We'll work something out.
Okay, thank you, boys. Enjoy the rest of your week.